Life is a car, and I have the keys. I create, I take risks, I am living my passion. Comfort kills growth. Already on my journey, I feel so much better, cleaner. My testosterone is increased. I'm following the process. I will succeed. I can feel the spirit. I have been visualizing my success every step of the way. I can see the impact I will have on the world. It puts a smile on my face, but I know I'm not finished. I have to keep going, contributing, chasing that dream. When I stare across the Arctic, sand slipping through my hands, I will know what I must do.
All right, hello everyone. We are back with another Wet Wired for you, and today Jules and I are joined by filmmaker Jacob Gregor to talk about his recent movie, End of History. Jacob, it is a real pleasure to be talking with you today.
Yeah, we're both stoked.
Thanks, guys. Nice to meet you too.
Yeah, I was just saying, Jules, when you stepped away, that I think I've probably watched End of History about 4 times now, and I actually just had it playing right before I joined this call.
Yeah, actually about same here.
It's a lot of times to watch it. It seems like it might be a punishing watch for some people. So.
I think it is, and I'm glad you said that, because that's pretty much where I want to start things off. Because I been wanting to tell you, because everybody, like I've talked about having this conversation with some people in my life, and they've asked about the movie, and I told them the first thing I do is just sort of like, yeah, it's rough.
Yeah.
This is easily the most disturbing and discomforting movie that I've watched recently. It is.
Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, you've created this character that you've brought somebody to life that I'm pretty sure really exists and lives all over the place in the U.S. and Canada too, for that matter. I don't think Canada is exempt from this. I hope I really do sincerely hope that was your intention.
Oh, like the Canada aspect of it?
No, that the movie would be this uncomfortable.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it was both unsettling for me, and there were parts where I'm not sure if it was just going over the moon or just going over it, where I was so unsettled by it and perturbed that I started laughing at a handful of parts where it just became funny in its absurdity.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. I mean, this character is very much based on weird reply guys you see on Twitter to respond to the big right-wing accounts. I've always just wondered what is their life like? What is their day-to-day? What are they like in real life? It's kind of meant to be uncomfortable and sad and pathetic. And
yeah, you really get the feel of being in this person's shoes and also an observer of the main character.
Yeah, I'm very much into slow cinema style movies. I'm a big fan of Simon Liang, a Taiwanese director. But a lot of slow cinema is a lot of wides and kind of isolating and kind of detached from the audience. And I kind of wanted that kind of flair, but for this type of character you don't normally see in a slower movie like this.
I think to briefly summarize it, because clearly it's got a limited release, so not probably anybody who's listening to this, except for maybe a couple of people, are going to have had the chance to see it. I want to briefly summarize this extremely depressing movie, which is fully steeped in hopelessness as well. So, there's no resolution. This character just goes on indefinitely, we're to assume, living like this. I want to do that by reading a tweet from you, Jacob, because this is how I was introduced to this movie. And I think it was a mutual acquaintance of ours, Christopher Bell, that retweeted this, and that's how I came across it. So you wrote, "My new feature film, End of History, will be premiering at Cuff_Chicago," and that's the Twitter handle for the Chicago Underground Film Festival. "Will be premiering September 19th. It's about a loser driving to Alaska and listening to podcasts." And as soon as I read that, I knew immediately that I had to watch this movie. If not for any other reason, that I am a loser who makes podcasts.
I like to describe it that way because I don't want people expecting anything more than that, because that is what it is.
I mean, the film does not disappoint. I mean, really, like that description, I mean, there's so much more to it, though, because I really do think there's quite a bit more to it. It reminded me, as I've been thinking about it, it reminded me quite a bit of the pilot episode for The Sopranos. And, of course, just the tone of it. And the comment that Tony Soprano makes when he's first speaking with his therapist, and he says that it's always good to get in at the beginning of something. And lately I've been feeling like I got in at the end. It starts off in the most depressing tone of like, we're going to witness decline. And, this is what it feels like to be living in decline. That's something that I had in mind. I had in mind the lack of volition in this character, the lack of like internal direction. He has no sort of like, he doesn't really have any like independently originating motives. Everything he's absorbing it from these voices that he gets piped into his head. There's really no room for anything else.
Even his credit is man.
Right. And
not even man number one.
Yeah. It made me think of Anton Chigurh in No Country for Old Men, where, this is a guy who just, he goes around, and if you ignore all the, the murder and mayhem he gets involved in, everything he's doing is at the behest of somebody else. He's never picking his own direction. And, even when he's about to kill the gas station attendant, or at least contemplating it, it's based on a coin flip. This is somebody with no volition. So, maybe like the ultimate kind of example is in American Psycho, where somebody who's just constantly pursuing, these material pleasures, but is also ultimately, obviously for obvious reasons, unsatisfied because you can't get pleasure from these things, or not the kind of pleasure that satiates somebody. It's like this character just wrote, like, it seems to be this continued development of all of this, this sense that so many of us have, that of just the emptiness, the vacuousness of everything.
Yeah, he was very much thought of from the very start to be kind of just like an empty vessel of a person, of a character. Like, we never thought about like any backstory or like family history. That really didn't matter to us, because I don't think it matters at all. He's more representative of this kind of general ideology and idea of like this sort of emptiness of just consuming this kind of content nonstop, kind of having none of your own ideas, being angry at the world, but not really knowing why particularly, and just having no solution to making anything better. Or, yeah, it was very much from the start just supposed to be this sort of representative, no named character who just kind of represents my current outlook on, I guess, the current culture.
The way that you echoed all of that sentiment with the landscapes in this movie was really extraordinary. He goes from, there's these wonderful landscape shots, especially, maybe I should back up for just a second. Did you start off in Ohio for this?
So we live in Chicago now.
Okay.
I am originally from Ohio, so we did actually go back and film a bit in Ohio and Indiana, but technically our actual road trip started from Chicago. Okay.
So, I mean, we can say for the character, he originates in Ohio at least. And, we have this sort of like general purpose, like, I mean, I've spent a lot of time in the Midwest too. And you have these very, like, I guess, definitive landscape shots of what you would see in a lot of places where there'll be all this nature, but everything is crisscrossed or bordered by some sort of man-made boundary, like a road or street lights or something like that, or, a freeway or something. And so we have all these beautiful shots, but everything's so contained by some man-made structure. And then as he gets out of the cities and into, more and more open country, I think the first shot that we have in the film of a landscape that doesn't have some obvious border around it is a mountain range. And I'm guessing that might be in Montana or in Canada. And he pulls off to the side of the road to film a push-up video. And it was like, he hasn't seen any of this stuff before either. This character hadn't seen any of these things. And what could be a transformative experience, the first time seeing this uncontained nature, is just lost because he's trying to make shitty content.
Yeah. That was filmed in Banff National Park in Canada. But that was very much the idea from the start too, is we would eventually, film these kind of scenic mountains, but he wouldn't really give a shit. And also kind of, I'm not like a nature guy either, and I also hate road trips. So that's also part of me. I don't really give a shit either. But yeah, very much the Midwest sprawl is something I grew up in, suburban Ohio, Columbus, Ohio. And it's just something I've known all my life and have lived in all my life.
The impression that I got throughout the whole, not throughout the whole thing, but each time we saw some landscapes, was most of it was some kind of Ansel Adams capturing mediocrity, capturing just shit, like either the suburban wasteland with all the signage of every franchise that you can think of, or it's something where it's like a dirt lot or some dried up tundra where the composition is beautiful and you have the sort of things that art critics would give a lecture about. But the subject matter is just junk. It's nothing. And we finally get to some good stuff. And he's duct taping his fucking phone to film himself being the SNL character Stuart and saying, "Look at me." It's an absurd juxtaposition between these different visuals and experiences that he's setting out to see. But everything that he seems to be seeing, except the moment when he doesn't give a shit, is just junk. It's just a motel off of a highway or suburbia.
All those shots are very much just what I think about when I think of America, and you never see it filmed in that kind of way, in like a artsy, like still frame, just kind of way that you would film like, a mountain landscape. But like a couple of the shots early in the movie are shot in Hilliard, Ohio, which is the suburb I grew up in. And just every day in Ohio, I would drive to my job at Target, and I would drive around the same streets over and over again. And it was just really depressing and bleak and isolating. And I just really wanted to capture that feeling. That was kind of my main goal of, even before we knew what the character was or what like the political aspects of the movie would be. It would be to like capture that feeling of like suburban sprawl America.
It's almost the contrast of that famous photograph from 1936, the one of the migrant mother, where it's this mother and two children. It's a black and white, and she's just holding her hand on her chin, and it's this horribly bleak photo. But the beauty of the photo is in part in capturing the desperation.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of bleak landscapes, but it's also the landscapes I grew up in. And one of the other things I want to do is like, I haven't gone to much of America, but I assumed most of America kind of looks like Ohio. I assume it looks like just, the same old shit and over and again. And I assumed Canada looked like that as well. And it does. And that was kind of the other aspect I wanted to do, is this is not necessarily an American only problem or American only movie. And that's kind of why I liked, half of it was filmed in Canada, and I really like that aspect of it because it's an international thing. It's not just an American thing. Even if a lot of that weird cultural shit originates in America, it's still it's a worldwide thing.
Oh yeah, at this point it absolutely is. I mean, especially considering the cultural shifts that we've seen coming from the UK and in Australia as well. I mean, it's definitely an Anglosphere thing, if anything, but it's broken off into Eastern Europe and Asia and other places as well.
Oh yeah. I've listened to some, translated Korean, like influencers who are insane.
And you get to see that, I think that's a good time for me to comment just about my assumptions about how much terrible content you had to listen to in order to make this in such a convincing way. I was legitimately fooled for a good chunk of the beginning of the movie about the some of the voices, like the podcaster and influencer voices that you're playing, and because they seem so real. And Jules and I both have listened to so much terrible content ourselves, and from so many different voices, that all of this still rang really true. And I'm like, who are these guys? I've never heard of these guys before. And I actually searched when I realized that this was like that you were doing an emulation, or, like of some real voices, was with Based Operator. And I had recently been listening to a lot of these operator guys, and because of the Fort Bragg cartel book that came out recently. And I was listening to a bunch of these operator podcasts, and this guy sounded just like one of them. And it was when he's ranting about.
Me, so I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, that was you.
That was me. Yeah.
Well,
halfway through was the only part where I actually figured out, okay, this is definitely reading from a script that is meant to imitate podcasts, and it's not actual recordings of podcasts as a clip.
A lot of them are like 80% real podcasts that we just re-recorded. Because it's a fine line between, it's a real fine line between something that sounds fake. Because a lot of the real shit sounds crazy and it sounds insane, but if you just say it as is, then it sounds fake, even though it's real. It's a real weird kind of line to do in a movie when you're recreating it. But it's like 80% basically just stolen from real podcasts. Like all the Twitter replies when he's doing the voiceovers, those are all 100% real. We're like 95% real.
I knew they would be. I've read those replies and like the YouTube comments, and that's exactly how people talk. The way people speak to each other like that. And commenting to other commenters too is always that's a fascinating thing.
And a lot of them sound AI now, even if they're not AI bots. They're like emulating like AI bots that they're seeing on Twitter and stuff, because they're all the top replies.
It's become the new way.
Even if like the real sounds AI.
Yeah, it's become this new pattern of writing, because like so many, especially coming from certain certain pockets of people, are reading so much AI content and using AI so much that they're starting to write that way.
Yeah, and it's.
The other day I got
so
by
depressing.
an AI bot. I replied to a comment because I had some cheeky, clever comment that I wanted to make. I mostly just wanted to be sarcastic. And then as soon as I noticed that the reply came pretty damn quick, I noticed that this person replies to every comment, and a lot of the replies are contradictory. Now that doesn't mean anything that they're contradictory, but it's bizarre how much it's just become so normalized that we can't tell the difference. It's hard to tell the difference.
Yeah, like there's a reply he does where he just tells someone like, it was my birthday last week or whatever. I know that's a real one, and I know it's real because it's someone like I've followed for a long time on Twitter. My Twitter feed is pretty bad, but I've always been kind of obsessed with these kind of weird guys on the internet, so I've always followed a lot of them from like a distance. And I've noticed like certain shifts in how they talk, and it's not a good thing to like be an expert on, but it's probably not a worthwhile thing to read a lot of, but I've done it. So
what was your interest? Because I think you mentioned that you were never interested in doing in investigating a character like Andrew Tate or somebody like that, but you were more interested in the people who would be replying to Andrew Tate. What is that interest that you have in the reply guys?
Well, like Andrew Tate or guys like that, you kind of know what their deal is. They're like 80% bullshit and like 20% believe what they actually say, and whatever mixture. Most of those guys have some mixture of like, they know they're full of shit, and then a mixture of like, oh no, I actually believe I am this cool. Well, I've never found that interesting in a character. It's also been done a lot. I feel like there's a lot of movies about, these kind of thought leaders, right-wing thought leaders. I thought it was more interesting to be about a guy who just follows them. 'Cause there's movies about that too, but they're never presented in a way that I feel is accurate to the people I know in real life, who are just kind of quiet and losers. And because the other thing is, a lot of people, when you watch a movie like this, they expect some sort of third act violent outbursts, Taxi Driver, something like that, where he like loses it and kills people. But a lot of these guys just never do anything. And that's
almost all of them never do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Almost none of them ever have a moment.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, to me, way more interesting about, you're just always having these thoughts or like darkness inside you that you never like act on, and just sit and stare at a wall basically for the rest of your life.
It's like the following of somebody who is writing a book about how to write books so that people can buy your books about how to write a book.
Yeah.
It's just this endless cycle of empty content where the guys are saying, well, make sure to follow your dreams. What dreams? You gotta go out there and get it. Get what?
That's the other thing too. A lot of like the leaders are like just copies of copies at this point. They don't really have anything new to say. And that was the other reason I didn't want to use real people too. I didn't want to use real podcasters for a couple reasons, but one of them is just, they're so interchangeable at some point. They're just, you never know who's going to fucking just, like before Charlie Kirk died, I hadn't heard of Charlie Kirk in like 2 years. But
yeah,
they all just kind of go in and out of popularity.
That, it's so refreshing to hear that you hadn't heard of Charlie Kirk in 2 years, because that's, as a lot of people in my life know, like the kind of things I do and how I spend my time on the side, and one of those things is following a lot of Christian nationalist figures and right-wing influencers and stuff like that. And all, like, to a T, every single person that I just know as an acquaintance or as a friend that asked me about Charlie Kirk said I'd never heard of him until he was killed.
Yeah.
And I think I tell them the same thing. I said, that is the most normal thing that you can be, is somebody who doesn't know about Charlie Kirk, because he's not anybody that was ever worth paying attention to, except for very specific reasons.
Yeah. And I think I always followed more the like Nick Fuentes type followers who hated him. So I think I was more following in that direction when I was, looking at this kind of right-wing content. But yeah, they all come and go in popularity.
I also think, like you, that it is more interesting to look at the people who are following these folks to understand what is happening in our civilization at the moment. Not to be too grandiose with this statement, but I mean, when we're trying to model, how does this work? What is this? And you just look at the people who have gained enough wealth and influence and popularity and money, that doesn't necessarily mean anything other than they have those positions of privilege and power. But the question that is perhaps more pertinent and revealing is, who is the person who is the average person who is following that guy? And that guy is going to speak about all kinds of different things that are either totally vacuous and say, well, you gotta improve yourself and you gotta have that wealth mindset, that abundance mindset or whatever, whatever the fuck that means. But at the same time, there's lots of somebodies, enough somebodies to pay that person a ton of money, either through some kind of streaming service or something else, through Patreon or something, a ton of money, that are saying, well, this guy resonates. This is what I'm all about. Why does he resonate with that person? Because there are a lot of that person. And that's who's really kind of, in a way, changing things.
A viewpoint I never fully understood, because I'm 30. I grew up on the internet. I grew up posting on message boards when I was like 10, 11, 12. Usually gaming message boards. I didn't post on like 4chan much or anything, but I viewed it when I was like 12, 13. And then I was a very lonely. What's that?
The golden years.
Oh yeah, I was a very lonely kid. I didn't really have friends when I was in high school or middle school, but I was still never following these guys, and I still don't understand how it's like possible to fall into this rabbit hole as like a depressed teenager like I was, who only used the internet all day 24/7. I still never like fell quite into this hole, and I don't know, I was just wondering like what it would look like to view that person. One of my first shots was just in my head was just a long shot of him just looking at his computer for like 2 minutes. And that's kind of what I wanted the whole movie to be, basically.
I mean, because so much of this has to take place internally for this character. I mean, he's not doing anything. Even when he does something, which is, this big road trip to Alaska, that's not even his, like it was like the clip at the very beginning, the voiceover talks about how he's going to, nobody lives their life, I don't know, epically or something like that. And that, like, I'm doing this trek across Alaska. And, so his version of that isn't even a trek across Alaska. It's just driving there, and which is still something, but it's, I know the whole thing is like, it's so completely hollow. And you get this sense that, I don't know. It's just such an interesting character study, because this guy is just all the time that he could be spending actually like, maybe reading better books, or like he doesn't seem to have any relationships in his life. There's no people, and like he's got these like, these parasocial relationships, but that's the extent of it. He seems to be totally deprived of any kind of real connection.
After listening to that, Sean, he points out the podcast that you were just mentioning. I made a note of it here. He says in his he does these different recordings throughout the film, and one of the first recordings before he sets out on his journey is he says, "My journey is about experiencing new cultures, feelings, and ideas in order to improve myself and expand my mind." He doesn't meet anybody through the whole, I mean, at least that we could see in the film. We see him interact with nobody other than the Verizon wireless customer service person,
the
asking telemarketer asking how he feels about his cell phone plan.
Yeah, that was we didn't. So when we started the road trip, we didn't have anything written down. We just had a vague idea of this character and that he was into motivational stuff and probably some right-wing stuff, but we didn't have any idea of what we were going to film, which is probably not a good idea.
I felt like it nailed it, honestly.
Yeah. Like at some point we were thinking he would have interactions with people, maybe on the road he'd talk to someone, have a bad interaction with someone. And I filmed one of them. But at some point I was like, no, I think it's better if he never actually talks to anybody face to face and only talks over the phone. And I also really like the idea of him being a non-confrontational character. He only gets mad at people on, when he's on Twitter or whatever. He's very not confrontational, which is how I am. So that's a bit of me. I don't confront people.
Well, he clearly hates Connor.
Yes, he hates his coworker.
Fucking Connor can eat a cupcake at work, and I get in trouble for eating a bag of chips.
Yeah, it's something he would say to himself, but he would never say to his coworker.
Never say it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's something about that combination of, these sort of like majestic imaginings with this repressed sort of like demeanor. Where in his mind, he's imagining this epic life that he feels like he's entitled to because, that all these voices he's listening to are telling him he's entitled to it. And the one motivational guy is like about visualizing the Ferrari or something. And meanwhile, he's driving this old Jeep with a Bezos license plate. And
not a lot of people noticed that license plate, but yeah.
Oh yeah, we both noticed it right away. Well, and the best part is he has that sense of attempting intensity, like the trying to come into contact with something that he thinks is meaningful. I mean, this is almost, ripping out pages of Sartre here or something like that. But he says, jokes are the lowest form of humor. Real humor is being completely serious.
That's a tweet that someone wrote. I stole that one. That's a real guy who said that.
Somebody actually wrote that.
Yeah. I know who it was, but I'm not going to say who it was.
No,
fine.
no, there's no need to at all. I am incredibly grateful that it's been immortalized in your film, though.
When I saw that one, I knew I had to put that in there. My Twitter, bookmarks or whatever, is terrible.
I can definitely relate to that. And there really is a Patrick Bateman quality to his monologues. I mean, because so much of it is emulating what he thinks is going to be something without ever recognizing how superficial and silly most of the comments he makes are. Yeah. He said at one point, he said that he's like a lion sucking up knowledge. And the words suck and lion go together the least, that's the least appropriate word to ever connect with a lion is sucking.
I was trying to, when I was doing those monologues, make them make less and less sense, as just slightly, not overdo it gibberish, but all his monologues are just recreating something he's heard before. Often you hear the original in the movie. But sure, I wanted it just be less and less he's obviously forgotten what the actual phrase was at that point.
And the one that you mentioned, Jules, is a regurgitation of what he hears the podcaster say in the beginning. When he talks about he's gonna try to meet new people and encounter ideas and whatever. The guy said, "I've met so many new people and encountered so many ideas and ways of living," or whatever. So his is just it's a variant on that. And that's interesting. I didn't catch the sort of the dissolution of that sort of process as he goes along.
It's very, very subtle.
But it does make sense though, because especially with thinking towards the very end, that when he's talking to himself about Connor at work, that is the moment where you actually get some kind of real person there. It's petulant and it's a tantrum, but it's still a real person, and you get to see that there is somebody there. He's reacting to something in his own life and not this content that he's constantly immersing himself in.
Yeah, that was definitely intentional. All the monologues obviously aren't a real internal monologue. It's just him saying stuff that he's heard people say. But at the last monologue, I did want a hint of him, his actual just bitterness of a person, poking through. But that's what that whole thing with his coworker is just he's a very, very bitter person, which again is something I can kind of relate to, but maybe just not in that way.
Maybe not without the outbursts.
Yeah.
I think that actually does indicate maybe just the slightest little shred of hope that there's maybe some part of this extended period on the road actually did sink in a little bit. That he was altered somewhat by his own experience and not just what he receives through these podcaster voices.
Yeah, it's very much the last shot of him just looking at the wall is very much up to you to interpret how much has actually sunk in on him. If
he's listening to Joe Biden's State of the Union address there.
Yeah.
And at the end, that really got me was throughout the whole thing, each of the different podcasters from the various spheres of podcasting, some about real estate and others just being right-wing racists, and each of them were completely vacuous in everything that they're saying, just as vacuous as the few things that he says. And the combination of words that they say amount to nothing. They mean nothing specific. They just sound nice, but they have no meaning whatsoever. And then you get to the real clip of Biden. saying something about we gotta do better and be bigger. It's like, this is meaningless. This is meaningless content. Yeah. You're not saying anything.
And that's kind of how all like political speeches sound at the end of the day. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's saying like, you know, America gets knocked down, but it always gets up again or something like that. I mean, what? There's is this
fucking Chumbawamba song? What is he talking about? I don't want to lose the thread of how it feels watching this, and I don't want to spend too much time on this because we already kind of talked about it a little bit. But there was something that I wanted to say about that, which is that so many of the different I guess documentaries or even things just broadly about the people who might watch Joe Rogan or listen to Andrew Tate or something like that, or those figures themselves, are often doing it like a nature documentary, or, you know, like we've got some observation of a wildebeest being tackled, but in this distant, non-corporeal way. But in reality, this one here puts you in the shoes of the person, I think, a lot better. And I think gives more understanding through feeling the discomfort, I think, of this, of man, that is not really conveyed as well when you're talking about it like you're reading a description in a textbook or a Wikipedia article or something like that. As you're feeling the discomfort of him in his claustrophobic apartment with, which I say as somebody who lives in downtown Seattle in 400 and some change square feet, 100-year-old apartment, you know, like,
yeah,
I felt depressed looking at his apartment. It felt oppressive.
That was the actor's real apartment.
Sorry, actor. Sorry, man.
No
number
set
one.
deck for that one either. His apartment was kind of a mess. But he was a garden unit, so very low ceilings too.
And no disrespect to him, but it was just like, it just felt so claustrophobic. And maybe it was partly the filming too, because I'm sure you were intending, or I don't know. I wonder if you're intending to like really make it feel cramped.
Yeah, definitely. I really wanted to shoot in his apartment just because of the way it looked. It was a garden unit, so it's really low ceilings too, so it feels more boxed in. It's actually pretty wide. There's like probably a decent amount of square footage, but it just feels really small. But yeah, I shot everything on a wide angle lens because I wanted to give it that like kind of boxed in feeling where you can see the ceiling, you can see the floor at like all time, anytime it's filmed indoor.
Yeah, it really does feel that way. And each of the scenes where he's like eating and staring at the wall, it was so perturbed. I was unsettled like nothing else.
I'm glad to hear it. That's kind of what I wanted.
Where he's just like looking at the microwave and eating his pasta.
Oh yeah, I do really like his kind of kitchen table setup, which was also kind of the actors.
That's great.
But yeah. But as I have a girlfriend now, so my apartment looks a bit nicer. But if I was single, it would kind of look like that. Well, it would probably just look completely empty with no furniture.
Mm-hmm.
It would look like a Paul Schrader movie, basically, if I lived alone. But I think that's a common thing amongst any political divide, is living like that. So
yeah, I mean, I've definitely lived in my share of places like that too, and I could empathize with that. Like when he's trying to hang the pull-up bar and he doesn't have any normal doorway in the entire place.
That scene was genuinely funny.
That was like I've definitely lived in those places that did not have the normal doorways, and you know, with the amount of space that you could do something, you know, that like hang up a standard piece of equipment like that. But
yeah.
So I did want to make sure to ask you, how did the scene with the exercising with the folding chair in the backyard come about?
Oh yeah.
Again, I watched a lot of weird YouTubers who have like no subscribers. And one of them was doing like backyard wrestling training, and he was just throwing a log in his backyard.
That's what it felt like.
I even wrote that down. It was like like the WWE workout routine.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's very much, he was throwing a log around. and I just changed it to a chair. But yeah.
I thought it was going to be that in the next scene or something like that, you'd see a cut of him like reconfiguring it so that he's like editing another character or himself into it, being hit by the chair, and he's going to like post it on YouTube or something like that. I was imagining something way more grandiose, and then it was just he's swinging a chair.
Yeah, I kind of like that though. But
yeah, I think it's great. Yeah.
I like throwing in a lot of these weird details that I've just observed in other like guys like this, just to make it feel more like real. Like the more weird a detail is, that kind of feels more real.
I think it really works well because it amplifies this same kind of relationship that he has with all the other content, where it's like everything gets distorted and sort of half remembered. And, you know, he knows he's supposed to be exercising because that's what all these people say. They talk about, you know, nutrition, and they're all selling athletic greens or some other supplements or something like that. And then, you know, so he knows.
And meanwhile, he's chipping away at frozen buona and trying to put it on some microwaved pasta. As the podcast is saying something about, dang, well, I even wrote it down, but I don't, here we go. Not the seed oils every restaurant is poisoning our bodies with, as he's trying to chip at the frozen, gravy and beef.
Yeah, it's like
from the Italian restaurant.
It's like a large Italian beef, like Chicago thing, frozen from like Costco or whatever. But yeah, it's disgusting.
I didn't even know what it was. Sean had to tell me. I've never been, but Sean knew right away.
But yeah, like those details, a lot of them are just observed from like people I know in real life, or again, these kind of weird one-off guys I can kind of just follow from a distance. And I like not explaining a lot of that stuff. Like, we never really even say why he's filming himself. We don't ever show him like posting his videos onto YouTube or Twitter or anything. He's just filming himself, and I always thought he was just filming himself just to like look at it back later. I never even thought he was like posting it. But I don't like really going into detail on a lot of that stuff. Just I think it's more interesting that.
Yeah, I totally get that.
Yeah, because you get a chance, the viewer has a chance to sort of to make their own kind of assumptions. And I mean, like my personal assumption was that he, you know, like a lot of people that follow influencers, they themselves secretly wish they were influencers. And so he's, again, with the emulation, he's copying the thing that he sees, but he doesn't know about all the things that go into that kind of content production. So he's doing it in the same way that he approaches his own exercise routine, which is sloppy and poorly thought out and unplanned and just, you know, kind of random. You know, like you show him in a number of times and like doing some kind of exercise, running down a hallway or something like that, or when he's about to post the epic content of driving through the puddle in the Jeep, you know, like that's, and it's like, I mean, it's terrible. It's all terrible content. It is. But it's some kind of reference to something he's seen somewhere else. And so we just have an echo of an echo of an echo.
Originally, it was going to be, at some point, there was going to be a shot of him like watching his own videos, like on his like photos app, just on his phone. Like it was called like his motivation folder. It was going to include like that shit along with, there's a shot near the beginning where it's just taking pictures of houses in like a McMansion neighborhood. And that was part of his like motivation, like mood board of like, one day I'm going to like have a house like this sort of thing. But I just kind of liked not ever having him explain why he's doing these things.
Yeah, because again, you know, I assumed something like that. Like there's some vision board, you know, like folder or something like that where he goes through and, you know, all the things that he's craving are in there, you know, like the house. Yeah. And I mean, he could have been taking, you know, like surreptitious pics of women on the street for that matter. It would have been the same kind of thing. Like this is the kind of girlfriend I want, or saving images of profile pics from different accounts or something like that. And it would be the kind of thing that would fit perfectly in with all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Jules?
Well, we cannot forget this is not necessarily a comedy, but I keep bringing up, there were a few funny parts that really got me. top of the list, obviously, is at like minute 5, where he's repeating this Buddhist-like mantra of "You will not touch your cock." He repeats it 21 times. I counted. and you've got this hardcore porn with slapping sounds in the background as he unzips his pants and sits down to repeat this over and over again. Where does that come from? I can see it a lot in some areas of the manosphere. I've read this shit before, but where were you taking this from?
Well, yeah, there is the whole no-fap thing, but I feel like I invented the watching porn but not jerking off thing. I've never seen that before. That was an original idea.
Later he does "You will not come," and he says that like 7 times.
That doesn't come from anything. That's straight from me.
I think it's awesome, and it is also perfectly appropriate for this character.
Oh yeah.
I mean, blended with all of his almost like 1980s, 1990s-esque motivational mantra audio, because I mean that was almost more of a thing, I think, that had its zenith in, I guess, like the mid 90s maybe, where there's this idea that if you just, the positivity stuff, you're good enough, to reference SNL again, you're good enough, you're smart enough, and doggone it, people like you. I mean, it fits with this character, but also his like delve into the manosphere.
You mentioned the whole it sounds like a Buddhist like mantra. Well, it's because like a lot of right wing stuff has kind of adopted that like spirituality that was like more left wing coded a decade ago, but a lot of that like spiritual East Asian medicine health stuff is now like right wing coded. I don't know when exactly that switch happened, but that's now like almost firmly right wing coded rather than left wing.
Yeah, there has been a granola to right wing pipeline that has been really in the works for at least 20 years. But I mean, honestly, it's kind of always in a way been there, because the right wing, at least in the fringe, it's become mainstream, but what was the more extreme portions of the right wing focused on the alienation of the individual. And so if you're going to have an audience of somebody who is feeling disaffected, disenfranchised, feeling like they don't have community or whatever their thing is, then a great place to start is with suspicion of the government, which sure, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Suspicion of corporations, of course, naturally. And then they kind of take that and launch it into it's the immigrants, or it's people who don't look like you, or whatever it is. But it's that same core underlying alienation that they prey upon that works on that whole granola, crunchy, anti-science sort of crowd.
I think Troy Casey is a really good example of that. The guy, the certified health nut guy that drinks his own urine, and he's also MAGA, and he does like the butthole sun tanning thing.
Yeah.
He has that kind of wild stuff. He's like this ripped guy with a big beard, and like he talks about all the natural foods and all this stuff. But I mean, he's clearly somebody who fits right in manosphere culture. He's deep into it. And I mean, you even got the sun tanning your balls thing from Tucker Carlson. Like he produced that documentary. I mean, I'm even giving it that kind of credibility. But he produced that movie about like the supposed science behind all of this stuff.
I didn't even know that.
Oh yeah, I mean they're like, just to what you're saying, that there's kind of like what some people call this conspirituality trend, where the more right wing people have adopted a lot of the stuff that would have been reserved for aging hippies 20 years ago. And, and everything from yoga to the vaccine stuff, all of it has been brought over from this kind of like spirituality, again, hippie type culture into all the right wing stuff.
Yeah. The audio I've always like the last audio in the movie is of the guy talking about how they no longer have the red cups at Pizza Hut. It's a mix of audios at the end, but that's like the one, that's like the loudest one is a guy just talking about being mad that Pizza Hut is different. And like
it fits. I mean, they just did the thing with
Crackle Barrel. Yeah. That's like the most, all the other trends the right wing like spaces go through. It seems like the one that is endearing of just, I liked it better when I was 8 years old. That's the one thing that just remains no matter what like cultural changes they go through. If they're like more into this year, more into that this year, at the end of the day, they just want McDonald's to look like it did when they were 8 years old.
You can rent a hotel room that is Taco Bell themed from the 1990s era. That is a real thing in late stage capability.
Look at what they've taken from us.
If I knew about it, I would have filmed there.
All right. This has been pressing on my mind, and unless you have something of greater priority, Sean, the biggest thing that maybe not the biggest thing, but something that I've been really wondering throughout this whole thing is, does the title have to do with a book and related essay by Francis Fukuyama in 1989 of the same name?
Not really. I read the essay 10 years ago. I've never read the book. I've always liked the title though. I thought the title really fit. But no, it has very little to do with the actual book. At least for my personally, yeah.
Yeah, I was curious about that too, and that's the one thing I wanted to bring up as well. Just the origin of the title itself, because it is. I mean, even if it is in reference to our reaction to Fukuyama, I mean that would work as well because he's basically arguing that Western liberalism wins. And the evidence is that there's fast food in Moscow and they play Beethoven in Japanese shopping centers. So that's his evidence that Western liberalism has won. And so now we've reached the culmination of our political development at this point.
Yeah, and the title definitely fits in that way. I just really like the title. I tried to find another title at some point because there is a movie called Norte, The End of History by La Diaz. I haven't seen it. But I wanted to find another title just because there was another movie by a famous art house director with that title. But I just could not think of anything better. I really like the title, so.
I think it's completely
it fits with what you were saying earlier of a copy of a copy of a copy.
Yeah.
Where you, at a certain point, I mean, I assume you're referencing Baudrillard, where we're just losing reality itself because everything is referencing itself at a certain point.
Yeah, definitely.
So, Jacob, before we go, where can people find you online, follow you, find more information about screenings for End of History?
I'm on Instagram and Twitter under Jacob Gorb, G-O-R-B. You can just DM me if you want a screener. I don't really give a shit. I'm not going to make any money from this movie, so just ask me for it and I'll give it to you. There is a screening in New York, November 8th. It hasn't been announced yet, but it will be November 8th. And there will be one in Toronto. No date yet, but around November. We're looking at a venue right now. But yeah, November will be Toronto and New York. Outside of that, just ask me for a screener and I can send it to you.
So if you're in Toronto or New York, definitely follow Jacob on Twitter and or Instagram so you can find out locations and times and all that information.
Yeah, and seriously, it was a very enjoyable movie.
I really appreciate it.
I mean,
really
uncomfortable, but also well worth the watch for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think my one word description of it is just bleak.
Yep, that was the goal.
Wow. And so thank you everyone for listening to another episode of Wet Wired. And, for our own plugs, if you want to support the show, you can subscribe or sign up at patreon.com/wetwired. And we also have a follow-up announcement about our first piece of new merch. It is our homage to state-managed infrastructure and the spiritual socialism of Juan José Arévalo, who was the first democratically elected president of Guatemala, and the airline that he made great. So There'll be a link in the show description. Like Jules and I has been laughing at me. He's like, you have to tell them more about this thing.
It's so obscure. It's such an obscure reference.
Yeah, I couldn't say I would have known it. So,
I mean, we've talked about it before on this show, but
like 2 years ago. So that link, the link to our first Wet Wired merch is going to be in the show description. Jacob, once again, it's been an absolute pleasure talking with you. I'm really glad we can make this happen.
No problem. Thanks. I enjoyed it.
Until next time, everybody.
Later, skaters.
You will not touch your cock. 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 You will not.